Chloe. Welcome to the PCG Digital Recording Studio.
Hello.
I'm so happy to have you. This is so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. This is my
Yeah.
first time on any podcast.
So much fun. Yeah. So I want to have a conversation with you today about social media trends, all of the great testing that we're doing at PCG Digital for our clients. But for those of you who are listening in, why don't you introduce yourself, kind of how you got started with PCG and what your journey has been to become a senior social media specialist?
Sure. So my name is Chloe McGinley. I'm a senior social media specialist here at PCG. I'll be here 4 years this month.
I can't believe it's been 4 years.
Yeah. So I started back in 2020. I've been through the company over, multiple offices now, from being in an office to going fully remote. So there were a lot of transitions. But I started out on the social team and worked my way up to senior social media specialist. So I definitely enjoy learning about the automotive industry. I was new to the industry when I started with PCG. So it's been interesting having a niche and a specialty. So now I feel like I know a lot about the industry, and it's been super interesting and learned a lot under your leadership. And there were a lot of changes in Facebook marketing and expanding to new platforms like TikTok. So yeah, it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, cool. So I want to dive in a little bit more into the testing that we're doing at our social team at PCG, right? Because we are such innovators at PCG, not just our social media team, but our entire agency. And that's why dealers really choose to work with us, right? So a lot of the times I notice when either I'm auditing a Meta Ads account for a dealer, and I'm sure you and Emmy on our social team notice this too, right? Our dealers will say, or other dealers will say, oh, okay, we have social media advertising running. And then you go into the ad account and it's one or two ads, it's traffic ads optimized for link clicks. It's not what it should be. It's not a full lifecycle marketing approach, right? What are different ad types that we're testing at PCG to make us a little bit more cutting edge in terms of how people want to interact with dealers online?
Yeah. So you brought up life cycle marketing a little bit, and that's when we're putting together a social media strategy. We want to make sure that we're reaching different audiences at different points in that customer journey or life cycle. So having that brand awareness piece, which is really going after the broadest audience, people that are not yet familiar with your brand. And then we can get down into the more consideration campaigns, which is where people may be familiar with your brand or they know they're in market for vehicle or service. So now we're reaching them with more targeted messaging about specific models or incentives or services. And those would be like your traffic type of campaigns where we're optimized for driving traffic to your website or driving phone calls, your more conversions campaigns that are driving traffic to specific vehicles on your website or driving leads. So people that have reached those final steps of the customer buying journey. So just different ad types within those. We can run click to call ads on Facebook. We can do click to message campaigns. So getting people to message you directly from Facebook, which a lot of times can result in more leads because you're not interrupting people's Facebook experience. When they're scrolling their timeline, they're more likely to engage with you from the app because that allows for a more seamless experience versus, having to click through to your website and scroll on their mobile device, which a lot of times is more difficult to navigate than if they were on a different device, and then having to chat with you from your website or even submit a form. So any way that we can lower that barrier and make it easier for you to connect with your audience in the moment, those are going to result in better performance for your campaigns.
Yeah, I love that. And what's great about strategizing using a life cycle marketing approach is that we take it a step further from the conversion, right? So when we're bringing people through a customer journey with a dealer online through meta advertising, a lot of the time and traditionally, right, we would just focus on getting them to convert, to call, to
Mhm.
text, to fill out a form, to message, to engage in some way. What lifecycle marketing represents is that we are now creating campaigns and strategies in the retention phase and in the loyalty phase. And I had a dealer ask me the other day, like, okay, like I get the retention phase. You want to keep up with them through service campaigns. You want to keep up with them through different branding now that they get to know you a little bit and what's important to them. But what kind of campaigns are in the loyalty phase, right? And I said,
Mhm.
in terms of campaign types in the back end of Meta, there really isn't any. Like, we're never going to make a loyalty campaign in the back end of Meta, right? Like, that just it doesn't mesh with what Meta offers. But what the loyalty represents is the digital community that you're
Mhm.
creating through social media advertising and through organic social media efforts. So when we talk about like what is the biggest influence when buying a car or when buying anything in general, it's typically word of mouth, right? Word of mouth advertising is the most effective advertising. I will trust you, I will trust my parents and my friends about purchasing something, nevertheless, something as large as a car, um, over any kind of advertising that I'm seeing. But the second piece to that is creating influence and word of mouth advertising through your digital community. And that's what
Mhm.
social media represents. I think taking a step back and kind of looking at it from a full picture and saying, okay, let's not focus on leads. And like,
Mhm.
I'm so done
Mhm.
talking about leads. Like, let's focus about the entire consumer journey. I think that's really, it's a lot more digestible for dealers to kind of say, okay, this is what my media mix needs to look like, and this is what it needs to include. So the fact that we're testing different campaigns like click to call ads, people don't realize that's even offered in the back end of Meta,
Mhm.
messenger campaigns, on Facebook destination advertising, making sure all of the campaigns we're running are mobile first optimized because
Mhm.
who is on Facebook on their desktop unless
Mhm.
it's the middle of the workday, right? You're primarily on your phone, I would say, right? 90% of the
Yeah.
time. So making sure all these little things are in tune to drive engagement is really important. If you are a dealer and you just have one or two campaigns up for traffic and they're optimized for link clicks, that is not a social media strategy. And I
Mhm.
can't emphasize that enough. So I'm so proud of our team and the fact that we're doing all of that great testing. Speaking of testing,
Mhm.
so I know that a few months back, let me kind of backtrack a little bit. A few months back, we really noticed that our metapixels were not reporting on the data that it once was. And we realized that was because of different privacy settings and people were opting out of data collection. And we really couldn't measure social media advertising in the way that we could a few months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. You really spearheaded the entire project at PCG to implement the conversions API installation for every single one of our current social media clients and processed it out so we can implement it for all of our new social media clients. So, dive into that a little bit. Why did you feel like it was so important and what did your process look like?
Yeah. So, really, it's a continuation of what we've always done, which is making sure that our clients' Meta ad accounts and business manager accounts are set up and in accordance with Meta's best practices.
Mhm.
So, back when the iOS 14, which was released a few years ago, that was kind of the catalyst for all of this,
Mhm.
where Facebook was very reactive in, worrying about the impacts on digital marketing because they make all of their money from advertising primarily. So if we were now going to be unable to measure the actions that are taking place on websites and across different apps, and they weren't going to be able to attribute that back to meta ads, then how are we going to, sorry, then how are we going to be able to measure the effectiveness of these campaigns? So
Mhm.
the conversions API was what they introduced in reaction to this, because now we're seeing, data privacy is a top priority. People don't want to be sharing their data.
Mhm.
Every time I go to a website, I don't allow my cookies to be tracked. So, even though I understand as a marketer the importance of that on the back end, it's definitely top of mind for consumers that are now more aware of data privacy. So then how do we as advertisers make sure that we're still running effective campaigns? So the conversions API, I think, is the best way that we have available to us right now to do that on the Meta end. So basically what it does is it works in tandem with the existing pixel, which we implement that across all of our clients, making sure that the Meta pixel is installed on their website and is tracking events. But that's something that's installed on the browser end. And anyone that opts out of tracking on the browser level, you wouldn't be able to track those events via the pixel. So what the conversions API does is it provides a connection via the server, which is a step above the browser. So it kind of bypasses any of those browser level restrictions. So that just provides a more secure connection while still protecting the data privacy piece. So what we're seeing on the back end now, having that implemented in tandem with the pixel is, up to 20%, I would say, more conversions reported or more events reported. So we're now able to have more data to pull from to measure the effectiveness of our campaigns. So that's been really crucial for implementing, and I'm glad that we could get that set up across all of our clients. And it is a process. It's very involved. There's a number of ways to go about it, and I outline those in our marketer's guide to the Meta Conversions API, which is a free resource we have on the PCG website that goes into if a dealer or a business wanted to set that up themselves, they would need a developer support to implement that, but it's definitely worth it because of the results that we're seeing. Because now that we, have more data that we can accurately measure and attribute to our ads, we know, okay, our ads are contributing to this traffic, and then that traffic is resulting in these conversions on your website. So just really protecting that data so that we have more to pull from to ensure that your ads are set up for success.
Yeah, and that was data that was always there, right? It's not like we're creating new data. It's not like we're creating new like measurements of success. It's data that was already there, but the data restrictions that consumers now have, which they have the right to have to protect their own data and their own privacy, we weren't able to see all of those great results.
Yeah.
So when we started to see results decline, and we're like, this just does not make any sense. Being able to track not just from the browser side, but from the server side has made all the difference. And to your point, we're seeing 20, 30, 40% increases in measurement. Like I said, we're already there. We can now just have access to that data, and that's great.
Yeah, exactly.
For those that are listening that are maybe their heads are spinning a little bit, right? Because they're like server-based measurement and browser-based measurement, and I don't know what that means. Let's backtrack. Let's go like 10 miles backwards. If a small business, because dealerships ultimately are small businesses, right? If a small business wants to just get started on social media, they don't have any advertising running. Maybe they have their Facebook business page set up. Maybe they have Instagram. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're on TikTok. Maybe they're not. What would be your best recommendation for any small business to get started on social media?
Yeah, so I think starting with the organic piece is really the key here. You don't want to just start off with a paid social media strategy without having a strong organic social presence on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whichever platform you are investing in. Having content that, giving people a reason to follow you. Really.
Yeah.
Because when you think about just as a consumer, the types of brands that you follow on social media, what makes you want to follow a brand and engage with their content? It's usually about the community that they build around their brand, right? It's not, if we were just getting served endless ads from them, if every single post that a brand shared was buy this dress
Yeah.
or buy these shoes, it wouldn't be the type of content that we'd want to engage with, right? So it's really about building a community around your brand and having that piece be really strong. So if you're going to, invest in social media advertising, I would really say make sure you're investing that in your organic
Right.
social content first and really building that up.
Right.
Because if somebody sees your ad on social media and then clicks to your Facebook page, are you going to want to have, an empty Facebook page with no content for them to engage with and they
Mm-hmm.
can't really, learn about your business?
Right.
So just keeping that in mind, that social media, not forgetting the social piece of social media.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I like what you said about building trust. And that kind of
Hmm.
goes back to what we talked about earlier about building a digital community and being almost an influencer in your own space as a car dealership. And I
Hmm.
think when people hear influencer marketing, they automatically think of people with millions of followers doing like crazy different ads or different content. But you can be an influencer in your own community. If you're the only dealer in a 5 or 10 mile radius, on TikTok or really, really active on Instagram, you have such an opportunity to create educational content to make people trust you. People have so many bad perceptions about the car buying process at a dealership and dealerships in general, but when you're kind of taking a step back and, to your point, creating content that you personally would want to engage with, that's going to make all of the difference. And even with our clients who want to come on for TikTok advertising, right? We
Hmm.
tell them right off the bat, if you do not have a strong organic presence, if you do not have somebody at the dealership that we can talk to about the kind of content that they're creating, then we can't run effective TikTok
Hmm.
advertising and we rather just not run it. We rather consult and advise you on the organic piece first because that is so important and crucial. So I love all of those points. That's great. So when it comes back down to life cycle marketing, right? I know that we talked a lot about creating different strategies utilizing life cycle marketing and the fact that the idea of the social media sales funnel is kind of a thing of the past. Dive into what your process looks like a little bit with a new dealer. So, say a new dealer is coming on with PCG for social media advertising. What are some of the questions you're asking them to gauge, okay, this is going to be a really effective strategy, and here are the tactics within that strategy that are going to make sense for this dealer? What does your process look like there?
Yeah. So, if it's a brand new client, I would first want to know about their brand personality. What are
Mm-hmm.
their selling points? What is their, you know, unique selling point or unique selling proposition? So, learning about dealerships that are, if they're family owned and operated for multiple generations, they've been serving this one area for 50 years, that's going to be a really strong message that we want to get across in our brand awareness because that instills trust and they've been an established dealership
Mm-hmm.
and so that's a really strong brand story that we can then use in our campaigns. I also always want to ask about their location. If they're located in a major metro area that's highly competitive, then that's going to inform our budget recommendations. And,
Mm-hmm.
if you're in a more populated area with lots of competitors, you're going to want to increase the budget in order to really make an impact there. Or if they're in a more rural location where, they're going to be targeting a much wider radius because they want to capture a wider area and they maybe don't have as much competition, then that's going to inform our strategy there. And they, might have a better opportunity to really dominate their backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would also want to learn about their inventory volume because that's going to inform our dynamic inventory marketing strategy. So if they have a lot more used inventory versus new, that's where we might want to focus our budget. And then just their overall sales goals. So maybe they have a specific goal that they need to sell this amount of new vehicles every month. Then maybe we want to be more aggressive with our new inventory budget.
Right.
Same with monthly incentives. Do they really want to push their new lease offers every single month? Do they have service incentives that they want to push, or are they in an area where they have, lots of fluctuations in weather and seasons, and they really want to push, snow tires every single winter. So getting a sense of their location, their brand story, who they are as a dealership, and who their customers are, really helps inform our overall strategy.
Yeah, that's great. And now as we head into Q4, which is a crazy time, like when we first got to the recording studio, you and I were both like, we're heading into Q4. It's so busy. Clients are so busy, which makes us so busy, which is great, but it's just a crazy time. But not just heading into Q4, but also heading into 2025. What would you advise dealers on the biggest social media trends that they should kind of look out for when they're starting to build those strategies?
So in terms of trends, I mean, not that it's much of a trend anymore, but I would say video marketing,
Right.
especially short form video content.
Yes.
We've really seen taken off, and that's something that Meta is continuing to push more and more in their algorithms. So, ever since they started their reels, which was kind of in response to the success of TikTok, they're really pushing short form video content. So reels content, TikTok content, and you can even, cross post those across both platforms, because things that tend to do well on TikTok will do well on reels as well. So that short form video content, that's, a mix of both educational and entertaining.
Right.
And there's, so much that you can pull from at your dealership. There's so much to learn about cars, so much that the everyday consumer doesn't know.
Right.
So just informing drivers and customers who, may not be in market to buy a vehicle right now, but they might remember that this one creator on TikTok taught them how to change a tire, or what this symbol means on their dashboard. And so they're gonna, remember your name. And now that they trust you, they might be scheduling their next service with you. So that's something to keep in mind, that your ads can really be your sales focused content, because that's the overall goal, right? But then your organic content should really be, how can I educate my audience? How can I entertain my audience?
And they need to marry each other, right? They need to be communicating with each other at all times. I think that's awesome. And one thing I would add to that, and we kind of already discussed this, right? But generational marketing. And the biggest piece that I want all dealers to really consider going into 2025 is how people want to engage with you online. The fact that we are still talking about form fills every single call, right? The fact that we are still talking only about leads when we're measuring social media advertising success. We are so far behind other major industries that at the end of the day, we end up competing with on these channels, right? So when you're advertising on Meta, when you're advertising on Google Ads, you're competing with these conglomerates that maybe they're not, also advertising their inventory, or your dealership, obviously not, but they're the same people that are buying from these other big conglomerates, and they are delivering personalized messaging to these people that Automotive just is not. And we are now kind of primed. We're primed to receive that really personalized advertising experience on Meta, on TikTok, on Pinterest, on X, on Google. I mean, like the list goes on and on. So how are dealers communicating with you online? Are you still relying on form fills? I was talking to Allie, who's the marketing director at Chastain Ford at DMSC when we were doing the DMSC podcast at the booth. She took her forms off her website completely, and the amount of chats, texts, and phone calls she has received that has increased her sales every single month has skyrocketed, because she's giving her salespeople the opportunity to have engaging conversations with them. At the end of the day, people are buying cars from other people. They're not buying cars because they saw one ad on your social media feed. And I always like to tell dealers when they're concerned about conversions or, leads at the end of the month, it's like if I introduce you to this dealership on the first of the month, they are not purchasing a car from you on the 30th of that month. They're just not. The car buying journey is not 30 days, yet our marketing strategies are still stuck in this 30-day cycle. We need to almost take a step back and look and say, okay, these car buying journeys are 120 days long. So how are we engaging with that one consumer for 120 days? Forget about 30 days. These are the conversations that we at PCG are having with our clients, and that dealers who are creating their strategies in-house need to really hound in on, I think, in 2025, or else us as an industry is going to just completely fall backwards. Is there anything else as we kind of close out our very first PCG podcast, I guess we can say, for dealers that are listening or small businesses that are listening when it relates to social media and the importance of social media?
Yeah. So I would say social media, it can be, often overlooked because people just associate it with, that's where I go to scroll and look at
the endless
memes.
doom scroll.
Yeah, that's where I go to, either get my news or catch up with friends or look at memes. But it really is such a powerful sales channel. I mean, just the other day I bought something from Instagram, and they make it very easy. You can, have all of your information saved in Instagram shop.
TikTok shop.
Yes.
I'm like a
They
big
haven't
TikTok
got me
shopper.
yet.
They got me big time, and now I'm obsessed. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so these are really evolving from the social media platforms that we, grew up on as, places to just like jot down your thoughts or look at your friends' photos. And now they're really powerful e-commerce channels. So thinking of them more in those terms. So making sure that your social media profiles really represent your brand. They should be almost a micro website when somebody visits your profile on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram. They should be able to find any information about your brand that they would find on your website without having to go to your website. So, having a social media, having paid social media strategy without the organic piece, that would be like running Google ads without having a website built out.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, making sure that it's, all working together as one, and, building up that organic piece so that your paid social media can be that much stronger.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chloe, for joining us in the PCG recording studio. I'm looking forward to many more of these.
Yeah, thank you. This is great.